Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by Old School Lane, producing various content from blogs, videos, and podcasts discussing about movies, TV shows, video games, and everything else in between since 2011. You can check out the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, Overcast, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and YouTube. We're associated with Channel Frederator, Manic Expression, The Comic Book Cast, and The Arun Mehta Show. Welcome to a new episode of Casual Chats. My name is Patricia.
And my name is Arun.
So I just want to apologize for two things. One, my audio quality. I just got back from England after being gone for 2 months, and I haven't been able to record new episodes of Casual Chats. But I hope that you have been enjoying a summer's worth of Pix Minis and Pix Mix, and we just posted up the newest episode of Dream Machine. So I hope you've been enjoying that. In addition to posting up on Anchor, and then we'll be posting up on YouTube at the moment, the episodes of Journey to the Blue Sky, where we're watching all of the Blue Sky Studios films, so I hope that you've been enjoying that. And the second thing I need to apologize is my audio quality. So because I'm back in England, and since then we moved house, so I haven't been able to unlock my boxes where my microphone and all of my equipment is, so I'm just using my laptop. So if I sound a little grainy, then I apologize.
I blame that I blame that British guy for all that stuff. Blame him.
Yeah, I blame you for doing that.
Oh, me? Okay. Oh, I'm the British guy?
But no, seriously, I love you.
Yeah, well, I'll let you off the hook this time, me.
Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about something that I've actually posted up on a poll for quite a while. So, ever since 2020, I wanted to look back on at least one new film that came out, and I wanted to post a poll on what you guys wanted me to watch for 2020, and you guys chose Candace Against the Universe. And because recently it was the 15th anniversary of Phineas and Ferb, I'm going to put that on hold in the meanwhile because I'm still marathoning through Phineas and Ferb, and then I have to watch the other movies.
And by the way, I haven't even got to Phineas and Ferb yet. I'm still making way for some of the older shows, from the early 90s. I'm not even got there yet.
Yeah, you just finished watching Gummy Bears, and now you're going through Ducktales.
Yeah, well, right now I'm going through Gummy Bears. I'm going through Gummy Bears. Right now I'm going through Ducktales. I'm going through Tailspin, and then hopefully somewhere down the line I'm going to get through to the other shows. But right now it's...
we did see one episode of Chippendale Rescue Rangers before we saw the movie.
Yeah, that's before we saw the new one, yeah, but that was just for context, really.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe we'll talk about that down the line. But in the meanwhile, I posted up a poll last year on what animated film from 2021 that you wanted me to talk about. The choices were as follows: Disney's Raya and the Last Dragon, Sony's Mitchells vs. the Machines, Sony's The Wish Dragon, or Netflix's Arlo the Alligator Boy, by a tight margin. Believe me, it was really, really tight. Only a few percentage between the two choices, between Mitchells vs. the Machines and Raya and the Last Dragon. The winner ended up being Mitchells vs. the Machines, and we're going to be talking about that movie today.
By the way, for all the people who are disappointed that we're not talking about Raya and the Last Dragon, let me just safely say this: Patricia's seen it, I haven't. I'm still trying to get to the point where I can see it, and so once we've both got in sync with watching the movie, then eventually we'll basically start talking about it. But until then, here we go.
Yeah. So Mitchell's vs. the Machines is a 2021 computer animated science fiction comedy film produced by Sony Pictures Animations. The film was directed by Mike Rianda, co-directed by Jeff Rowe, and it was written by Rianda and Rowe with Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, and Kurt Aberich as producers. So, yeah, I have to say that when you hear Lord and Miller, you know that there's something going to be good that's going to be happening. For those who don't know, Lord and Miller are two amazing duo of writers and producers who have done various films such as 21 Drum Street and its sequel. They did the Lego Movie, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They've done the TV series The Last Man on Earth and Unikitty. And just recently, they had been the producers of major films such as Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse and Mitchell's vs. the Machines. And they're working on the movie that's going to be coming out next year, which is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which, by the way, that movie is going to be coming out in 2023, not 2022, even though that you guys voted for me to watch that movie. So in place of the 2022 movie, we're going to probably be talking about the runner-up, which was the Bob's Burgers movie, but we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, when you hear Lord and Miller, you know that there's going to be something good that's going to be coming off of it. And by the way, this is actually a really interesting debut of Michael Rianda, who you may know as one of the writers behind Gravity Falls, created by Alex Hirsch, who, speaking of which, Alex Hirsch was actually a major creative consultant behind this movie, and a lot of people who you may know of on the Disney Channel, such as Dana Terrace, the creator of The Owl House, and Matt Brawley, the creator of Amphibia, also was a hand on working on this movie as well, with storyboards and various art designs and stuff like that. And also with the humor as well, with Alex Hirsch sitting down and taking a look at some of the story behind the film and giving his own feedback on it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think this is the one thing I think that we need to discuss really, because Mitchell's versus the Machines is another success story that came out of Gravity Falls. Gravity Falls has basically been the primordial ooze, pretty much for not just for Disney animation, but for things like Mitchell's versus the Machines and various other animation projects as well. Like Gravity Falls has been really a godsend for animation when you really think about it.
Yeah. So because we have Gravity Falls, we've had various other things, such as a lot of people who have worked on Gravity Falls went off to do major work for Big City Greens, Amphibia, The Owl House, Mitchell's vs. the Machines, and Inside Job. So yeah, they've created a lot of great animated films and movies, and it was all due to the major team behind it. It kind of reminds me about how a lot of people who worked on Adventure Time went off and worked on various shows, such as regular shows, Steven Universe, Over the Garden Wall, OKKO. So it's kind of like a similar story to that, but this is like Disney Channel's equivalent.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think when when I first heard about Mitchell's versus the Machines, actually I think one thing we should really start off with is basically the long production that it's time that actually went through, and dare I say it's one of the Mitchell's versus the Machines is one of the very few movies to come through production hell and actually be able to come out in to a heavenly audience. I have to say, because
Yeah, they were developing this story around 2015 when Michael Rianda was done with Gravity Falls, and he wanted to pitch the idea over to various studios to see if they would be able to be really interested with this project. So he basically made a manifesto of the film called Control Alt Escape, which was the original title of the film.
one of the
And
many one
then
of the many
around
original titles, we should say.
Yeah, of course. And then around 2018, Lord and Miller joined the project as producers when they were working on, various films such as the two Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and the first Lego Movie, and then Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse. And yeah, there was a lot of production that was going on. They changed the title from Control Alt Escape to Connected, and then they changed the title again to Mitchell's versus the Machines, which originally was that title, but then they changed it to Connected back to Mitchell's versus the Machines. So I think one of the reasons why they changed it over to Connected from Mitchell's versus the Machines was because when originally it was supposed to be released in theaters and then it was going to move over to an exclusive Netflix project, there was already a series on Netflix called Connected, which is basically this like this Netflix series about people who are like really connected over to the internet and being like like the ups and downs of being connected over to the internet obsessively. So that kind of stuff. So they changed it over to Mitchell's versus the Machines, and Then finally, when it was released around 2021, it was critically acclaimed and it was even nominated for an Oscar, but it had lost to Encanto. But still, a lot of people say that this is actually the best film of 2021, which we'll be discussing about whether it is or not. So, yeah, I think that we should get started with the story.
Yeah. So, the story revolves around a family who basically you can see are very well connected into the modern day world. They're all either on their phones. They're always like either on their laptops or anything like that. So that gets under the skin of basically the dad of the family in all of this, and so then we're led to the teenage the eldest, daughter of the family, Katie Mitchell, who is basically becoming an inspiring filmmaker. And I have to say, at the very beginning when she's introduced, I love the whole idea of that the whole thing is told through through graphics, and her imagination kind of is visually present on the screen, which I think is a very good way to show how quirky and how creative and how aspirational Katie Mitchell actually is. So I like how she's introduced to us for the first time in this movie, and you get a really good idea for her character just through the visualization.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me once again of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, in which we get introduced to Flint Lockwood, and he's like this wide-eyed inventor, and he wants to be able to make something that is going to revolutionize science, and he messes up all the time, and his dad just doesn't get it. He's a very down-to-earth fisherman, and it kind of reminds me of when we see Mitchells vs. Machines. Okay, we have this young girl named Katie who loves film. She wants to be a filmmaker. She wants to be able to make like these really quirky, weird movies with puppets and with her dog Mochi and stuff like that, and her dad is like this really down to earth guy who loves building things and is more or less not a big fan of technology. So, but he's like very supportive of what Katie wants, but at the same time, he kind of wants the old relationship that he and Katie had when she was young, in which he was her whole world. That when we saw in the flashbacks in the old VHS camera, where she was like always close to him, and he would always be like really doing a lot of fun stuff together. And then there's like this moose that she actually had when she was a child that he gave her, which we'll get to in just a moment about the significance of that. And so he wants that relationship back, but unfortunately she's already grown up. She's going like a completely different direction that he's not very familiar with. And he basically just wants to build that relationship back, but she's like in a completely different field than what he's accustomed to.
Yeah,
and then we have
the one thing I'll say about the father-daughter relationship in this movie, I think is very, very good, and how it's all told. This is a lot of families who are having on the verge of having their eldest go off to college and basically become their own person, and there's a lot of parents out there who are very afraid of that, and don't want to really let their kids go in that way. So it's this is one of the great things that Mitchell's vs. the Machines gets right right off the get-go. It's a really relatable story. They have and that's only one part of the story, may I add. We've got so many other bits to go. So.
Oh yeah, this story is massive, by the way. But let's go over to the other characters. So we have Linda, the mother, not to be confused with Linda Belcher from Bob's Burgers, even though they're kind of similar, in which she's like really quirky and she is very supportive with her family, and she kind of has a bit of a jealousy with the other family that lives next door that is just so perfect in every single way. Then we have Aaron, who's obsessed with dinosaurs and is calling everybody on the phone on the yellow pages saying, "Hey, do you want to talk about dinosaurs? Do you want to talk about dinosaurs? Do you want to talk about dinosaurs?" And he has this really close relationship with Katie. In fact, he's actually really sad that Katie is going away because they're like really, really close friends. They're not just brother and sister. Like they are like thick as thieves. They do a lot of stuff together. They watch movies together. They hang out together. They help with making Katie's movies. So yeah, they're really, really close. And then you have the dog Mochi, which is this really derpy dog that is basically just there to like look really derpy.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about this movie is that the dog character is just there just for comic relief. I think
Yeah.
and not much else really. So
Yeah, nothing really much else. I mean, it's kind of funny that it just so happens to be that this dog is not voiced by like a voice actor who's just doing dog voices and stuff like that, like Frank Welker or D. Bradley Baker. No, he's actually voiced by a dog named Doug the Pug, who happens to be a massive social media juggernaut. Apparently, he has over over like millions of followers on his social media pages. I mean, even more than even we have together.
yeah,
He
well, I
has
mean,
six
like, well,
million.
if Grumpy Cat can have a movie, as far as I'm concerned, then, why can't this dog? So
Exactly, yeah. He has 6 million likes and 10 billion Facebook views. He has 3.9 million followers on Instagram and 2.6 million followers on Twitter. And he has made a ton of appearances on various, shows and movies like Stranger Things. He was in Katy Perry's music video, Fall Out Boy's music video, and he was. They even dedicated a day. They dedicated a day to him at Nashville, Tennessee, where he's living at. May 20th is Doug the Pug Day, which is crazy.
okay, yeah, it's Tennessee. So
Yeah, exactly. It's Tennessee. So, yeah, I mean, speaking of which, the cast in this movie is actually really, really amazing. We have Abby Jacobson, Danny McBride, Maya Rudolph, Eric Andre, Olivia Colman, Fred Armisen, Beck Bennett, John Legend, Chrissy Teigen, Blake Griffin, and Conan O'Brien.
yeah, mind you, isn't it kind of amazing? Like, every time Eric Andre gets involved in something, it just immediately becomes like 40 to 45% more funny. When you like,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you, yeah,
He's a very, very funny guy. I mean, his show on Adult Swim is massive. You probably know about that infamous meme about like, Eric Andre is like shooting somebody and then he says like, I wonder why that happened. So, yeah, you probably know him for that.
yeah. Do you remember the time he got on stage with Alex Jones from Infowars, and like he pretty much was like trying to like out conspiracy theory Alex Jones, and he just stood there with like this stoned face and like, looking like dead inside, as Eric Andre was basically like reverberating back all like this conspiracy theories that he used to waffle on about back in the day, and like he doesn't use them anymore. And like he was just so confused.
Wow.
Oh, that was hilarious. That's on Adult Swim. I'm surprised you never saw it. But oh
Yeah.
yeah, that was brilliant. Well, yeah, Eric,
That was
he was
yeah.
on Jackass Forever, and he was getting involved in like some of the pranks. He was getting involved in the one where I think that MMA fighter was like punching what's his name in the balls or something like that. Like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh, like that was so hilarious. Oh my goodness, yeah. Eric Andre's just gold. Like I really hope that whatever else I hope he sticks around for a very long time because I really do like his work. So.
Yeah, and also going into Alex Hirsch again, he also plays as a quick cameo as one of the friends that Katie has met in college. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just get back into the story. So, Katie has applied to a university in California where she can be able to continue to pursue her career in film. And basically on her last day right before she goes over to college, you have this really tense and awkward conversation between Rick and Katie where everybody's like obsessed with like their computers and their laptops and their phones and their tablets, and he just basically says, okay, why don't we just have one evening where we can just sit down as a family and not rely on our phones and on our tablets just to talk to each other. And it just becomes really, really awkward.
Yeah, you can see that. Here's the thing, though. It's like, it's that really interesting discussion about has technology like ruined our, communication with other people, and but then, one argument against that is that, well, is it really the phones and the technology to blame for the fact that the family is like this, or is it the fact that the family themselves decide to draw each other away because they can't find any common ground? And so, it brings a very interesting philosophical discussion. It's almost kind of like, almost Big Lebowski discussions of it, levels of discussions, I guess you could say. So,
It
that's what I
actually
like.
brings a really interesting commentary about like, technology. Like, can it be good or can it be bad for us? I mean, especially with this whole pandemic that happened, in which when everybody was forced to stay home after this coronavirus had taken over everything and shut everything down, like businesses and schools and churches and various things, and people had to stay home and either work from home from their computers and had to rely on watching Netflix or various things for entertainment. I mean, as somebody who was going to school for about the first 2 years. And then all of a sudden, when the pandemic happened, I had to stay home, take classes via Zoom. And then when I was doing work for my school, like various projects, and, we were the only ones to do it when everybody else had to stay home. And watch it from their TVs or from their laptops or from their phones. It shows about the importance of technology, but at the same time, there's such things as taking it too far. And I think that this movie does it pretty well, in which like it's neither pro nor anti technology.
Yeah, it's
I think
actually it's just
both.
giving modern commentary on basically society today, if anything.
Yeah. Now they could have taken this like in a completely wrong direction. It's like, oh, the technology is bad. Rick was in the right. Katie should be focusing on, spending more time with her family. But it's kind of like Goofy movie in which you have to have a balance between what the kid wants versus what the parent wants. I mean, there's always a way that they can be able to compromise. Kind of like
But
how
then also they could throw it the other way, where they could do it really badly, where it's kind of like oh no, it's the technology all the technology is just to solely blame, and like if it wasn't for the evil phones and evil things like that, like they could all get together. But then also they could also throw it the other way, where it's like oh no, it's the family that are all the problem, like they're the ones who can't make it all work. You can't blame the phones or the tablets or anything like that. It's their problem, not everyone else's. But no, it doesn't do that. It meets in the middle, where it's like, look, the communication issues with the family is a factor also, but at the same time, you can't just blame all of that. What is happening with them being distracted by like all their phones and everything like that, and like all the technology and things like that. Also, that plays kind of like a bit of a barrier as well. So it's not blaming one or the other. It's basically it's basically taking equal amounts of discussion about each other side of the problem.
exactly, yeah, it perfectly balances it. It shows both the good and the bad of technology. And is done in a pretty smart way, by the way. So I think we should continue on. So we have Rick, who's trying to talk to Katie, and Katie is like presenting her film that she just worked on, and Rick is not too impressed with it, and Katie just feels really guilty about it. And so then Rick is like, "Oh no, 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 let me watch it." And then Katie was like, "No, you ruined it." And so he breaks her laptop by accident, and so then she just runs off, and then she locks herself in her room, and Rick feels really guilty about it, and Linda tries to convince him, I think that there should be a way for you guys to connect right before she leaves forever. And so, pulling off a Goofy movie again, he decides to cancel Katie's flight from Michigan to California, and they decide that they're going to have this massive road trip so that they can have one last bonding experience right before they drop her off.
Which really doesn't work well for her, because she's going to lose like the first week of her college pretty much because of this. So.
Exactly, yeah. And we just saw earlier in the film that she was able to connect with three people that she met up with. And, they were talking about, like, oh, you're a genius. That stuff that you posted up was awesome. And then there was this one girl that she was talking to. We're saying, like, oh, I really like this movie. It's like, wait, I thought I was the only one who liked this movie. So then we kind of see, like, maybe there's a little crush between them.
Yeah, so
Anyway, but
that's
yeah,
one thing also you'll notice in this movie is that this is one of the very well, many movies, actually many media now that actually is starting to adapt to LGBT IA plus representation. So like it's this is one of our main characters here is I think she's a lesbian, I believe. So
yes,
yeah.
yes, she is. It kind of makes sense because Abby Jacobson, who voices as Katie, is also bisexual.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I guess that with that going out of the way, we have this other subplot with this entrepreneur by the name of Mark Bauman, who showcases his new AI called PAL, and basically he just says that we're going to take over the world. We're going to, you're going to be like the top of the line. And then all of a sudden he basically just says, okay, I have this, buddy named Pal. And, this is basically like somebody who's going to be alongside with you, and you get to talk to them and you get to tell them what to do and all that kind of stuff. Well, that is completely obsolete. I have this new version. And Pal gets really pissed, especially when Mark basically just throws her away and then she vows for revenge, where basically it's kind of like a HAL 9000 situation in which she basically just like tries to take over everything, and it is just
It's like,
madness.
hey, giving a AI, emotions in a phone, and unleashing it onto the world. What could possibly go wrong? Well, this is what could potentially
Everything.
go wrong. So
Everything.
everything,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yes. I mean, we're going like we're not going like Terminator levels of like, Cyberdyne and a whole bunch of robots basically like, destroy everything, but it's more like, oh, they're just going to grab all of humanity and just toss them aside because they feel that humanity is flawed, and they feel that robots are going to be the one to take over everything because they're technologically perfect in every single way.
yeah, I thought
So
really with Pal, I thought we were going to get like a sympathetic villain, which is like you can understand why she's doing what she's doing because she doesn't want to get shut down. But no, I think in this movie she goes way overboard. Like she's at the point of like enslaving humanity. Pretty much, like every human is the same and things like that. Like it's just it goes into a very very dark, very very uncomfortable place with Powell, and so I don't know. Like I don't know whether that is good storytelling in regards to like this is what happens if you have like a machine that is is left to its own devices and basically can left to think for itself and not have like any type of control and like and because you're too busy looking at dollar signs like you're not really caring about like what happens. It's kind of like in once again we're going back to with Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, like you stood on the shoulders of other people and you created something before you even knew what you had. You packaged it, patented it, and slapped it on a lunchbox, and now you're selling it. Like it's one of those deals once again. Like it's funny. Like when we get to discussions like this, we always seem to go back to Jurassic Park in regards
yeah,
to
I
things like
know,
that.
right?
Yeah,
Whether we're
exactly.
talking about the story, whether we're talking about the special electronics, we're always talking about something related to that.
Exactly. Like because I mean, it stands to the the test of the time of that movie. Like just because you have a technology, just because you have something that that you can do, doesn't mean necessarily that means you should do it. So
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can point to a lot of things. Like, for example, I mean, once again, going into Terminator, you can probably point out as like, have you ever been? By the way, have you ever been to the Universal Studios Terminator show?
I never been to Universal Studios, no. So unfortunately, one of these days I really hope I'll go. But unfortunately, it's still on my bucket list, if you will. So
Yeah. Well, one of the times that I have been to Universal Studios, they used to have like a Terminator 3D show. And the opening right before you got in was showing off Cyberdyne and showing off like, oh, we have this technology that's going to help you, that's going to make things convenient, and it's going to make life a lot easier for you and the whole family. And it just makes it like look really, really nice and wholesome and sympathetic. But then when you get inside and you watch the show itself and find out, oh, what Cyberdyne has done, it basically like destroyed the entire world and most of humanity is dead. And then you have the Terminator coming in and saying like, come with me if you want to live. We're gonna, stop Cyberdyne right before they, create all this stuff. So yeah, again, it just showcases that, hey, just because, technology is very convenient for a lot of people, you just don't make it control everything that you have. Otherwise, you'll lose control.
I mean, can you also compare it to like a B&L from Wally? Like the big massive company superstore that kind of like
Sure,
took over
yeah. In
everything
which,
and like
like,
just destroyed
we
the
relied
earth.
on robots to clean up the earth, and then when it just got too overboard, humanity just pretty much gave up, and then they just lived up in space, and then they just relied on, the spaceship to take care of them. What was supposed to be like for like 5 years was took like 700 years, and then they just became so complacent about the ship doing everything for them that they just became lazy and fat, and they just basically not did anything.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, once again, it can. I think that what the movie does smartly is that we saw what technology can do that is horrible, but we also see that what technology has done can be a good thing. Which that's what we saw in throughout the course of the movie, in which we have somebody who knows everything about technology, who is Katie, and who's able to save the world thanks to her knowledge with technology.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean the whole movie with this road trip thing that's going on right before we see the takeover with Pal and all the other robots, we just basically see like the nightmare that is a road trip. Like they go over to a restaurant that just so happens to have 1-star reviews, but Rick says, "Why don't we just go there anyway?" They throw up and then they go over to like this place that has a lot of dinosaur exhibits and gift. Yeah, they go into this gift shop and they just basically do what you would expect for a family who has been separated for quite a while on a road trip. They just don't know how to interact with one
It's
another.
just like also it's kind of like in a Goofy movie like because Max and Goofy are like want to plan all these certain things that they want to do together, but it ends up like one ends up enjoying it and then the other one ends up like hating it, and that's the sort of thing you get here with Mitchell versus the Machines. You sort of like get that from like I mean the one thing I actually think we could probably ask ourselves like how much from a Goofy movie does it take away from a Goofy movie, Mitchell versus the Machines? Because I think in some instances it takes away quite a bit when you really think about it.
It does take a little bit of it. You're right, because I mean, you have a family who's been distant for quite a while. You have the kid who is starting to become more independent with themselves, is starting to build a life that's not with the parent. You have the parent who is very concerned that they might lose their child, and then you have the road trip, which is trying to bring them all together. And then at first, the road trip goes really, really badly, but then they have to work together so that they can be able to bond as well as go with whatever obstacles comes in their way. It does feel very similar to a Goofy movie.
Yeah, makes me wonder if that's was part of the influence in some of the story writing that was going on in
I
there.
wouldn't be surprised, considering that I know a lot of people were probably kids when they first saw a Goofy movie, and then afterwards they decided to put whatever influences that they have, whether it be with the father-son dynamic, whether it be with the road trip, whether it be with the humor, whatever it is that they were able to put into the film. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Mike Rionda and Jim Rowe, when they watched them, Jeff Rowe, when they sat down and they wrote the screenplay for Mitchell's versus the Machines, that they probably had a Goofy movie in mind.
Hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, then we go over to the scene in which they are at the gift shop, and then they find out that Pal is starting to take over all of the the robots and all of the appliances that are electric, and then people are starting to disappear. I mean, we even have this one scene where you have this perfect couple who are played by John Legend and Chrissy Teigen, that everything is like perfect for them, and then all of a sudden they decided to defend themselves by doing kung fu and karate and judo, and then you have the family who's trying to like defend themselves by staying in the gift shop and trying to stay safe. And there's even this ongoing inside joke regarding about Rick having a specific screwdriver that he gave to everybody for birthdays and anniversaries and Christmas and stuff like that, that he always says is very handy for whatever situation happens. So, they have to stay still, and then we have Katie, who's just feeling really, really devastated about everything that's going on. And even before the that part of the movie happens, where we see her talking to Aaron saying, I'm just doing this until we get to California. I'm just trying to put a happy smile for Dad, where, she basically is trying to pretend to have a good time with him when in reality she just wants to get to California as soon as possible. Again, going into a Goofy movie in which Max pretends to have fun with his dad at first, but only because the trail that they're going through is not over to Lake Destiny, Idaho. It's going all the way to California to see the Powerline concert. So it kind of feels very similar to that.
Yeah. So, I mean, in regards to like how the whole takeover works, like also there's a great commentary in there once again, like like Terminator, where like all the technology basically works against all the humans in every way possible. Whether it's like the humans have got like things music in their ears, so they can't hear like the Terminator coming through to like attack people and stuff like that, and like or this again like plays good commentary, and like this is the reason why having smart machines isn't necessarily a good thing, because it could easily be taken over by this whole thing. And so it's almost like what was that? There was a movie I'm pretty sure about where I think the Chinese was like taking over like machines and stuff like that, and started like bringing around like global domination. I can't remember what movie it was, or if it was a TV series or something like that. Sort of reminds me of that in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, and then along the way, while this whole massive takeover and grabbing humans and putting them up is happening, you have these two robots who help out the Mitchells, Eric and Deborah Robot 5000, and they tell them, oh, well, if you want to be able to shut us down, all you need to do is upload this kill code over to the computer. That way you can be able to shut down PAL, which, a kill code, huh? That sounds very similar to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, in which they had to go over to the source of the food machine to upload a kill code so that they can be able to stop the whole thing.
Yeah. It's like, you ever seen that meme where, like, what is it, like, all these cartoon characters, like, holding up floppy disks, and it's like, remember when floppy disks were, like, brought around, like, the end of the world? And,
Yeah,
it's like,
I remember
it's like,
Dexter's Lab and Sailor Moon.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Like, remember when kill codes used to bring around, like, the end of antagonists? Like, yeah. It's like, I think it's going to be something different in 20 years' time.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna have kill codes in our minds because everything's gonna be transferred from our minds over to other people's minds.
Yeah. It's like, remember when GameCubes used to be, used to bring around the end of the world?
Oh yeah, I remember. Anyway, but yeah, I think that the whole kill code thing just kind of reminded me of like, yeah, I think we did this before. Think about like 13 years ago with Cloudy of a Chance of Meatballs, in which Flint Lockwood had to upload the kill code into the food machine to stop it. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Was it a USB stick? I can't remember what it was or
it
not.
was a USB stick. Yeah,
There's a USB stick in this movie as well. I remember now.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was. It was a USB stick for both Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and with Mitchell's versus the Machines. I guess, because it does take place in the year 2020, it does make a lot of sense that it would have a USB as opposed to a floppy disk.
Yeah, someone recently reminded me of zip drives, and it's like, I've not heard of zip drives since the 90s. Like, they still make those things.
Oh my god, that just made me old.
Yeah.
I found a gray hair on my head.
Oh, good grief.
Oh boy. Anyway, so the robots who are first brought into like a little bit toward the movie, Eric and Deborah Bod 5000, they're actually pretty funny.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know how to feel about, like, we ended up with, like, these robot buddies that, would follow the machine. But I guess, how on earth were they going to stop this machine to begin with if they didn't have, like, the robots there to tell them how to do it? So, I grew to accept them, I think, as the movie went on. But it felt kind of awkward that all of a sudden, like, we were just stuck with two robots. And, like, and don't get me wrong, they were hilarious comic relief. Like, I mean, like, I was quite worried that they were going to end up, like, like the priest in, like, in Prince of Egypt. Like, they were going to become that kind of comic relief. But thankfully, they kind of kept it a bit more tame than that.
I see. You're talking about like Hotep and Hoy, the
yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought it was going to be like one of those deals, but thankfully it wasn't that. It wasn't that outrageous, so I accepted it. So.
Yeah, and played wonderfully by Beck Bennett and Fred Armisen, who you probably know for Saturday Night Live. So yeah, they were able to bring a lot of the comedy into both of these robots. So yeah, I think that.
I wonder how much of it was ad libbed, like because when they bring these type of comedians in, they usually want them to ad lib their stuff. I wonder how much freedom they actually had with these characters when they actually started voicing them in the voice. Box.
I didn't even think about that. That's actually really interesting. I mean, usually when it comes to like these well-known comedians who are from a sketch comedy show or from stand-up, I mean, who knows? Maybe they even brought Eric. Well, I mean, Eric Andre is not much of a comedian in this movie because he was the one who kind of like caused the whole thing with the whole pal situation. So he's more subdued with his humor. He's not the funny one in this movie, which is actually pretty impressive to show that, hey, Eric Andre is not just the funny guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think this was kind of making more well-rounded, I think, as in regards to, like, a voice actor. So, kudos for letting him do that. I think that was really cool.
Yeah, and also with
John it was like mind you, it's even better because you remember when they brought in Stephen Colbert to be the president in Aliens
versus Monsters vs. Aliens. You're right.
Monsters versus Aliens. Yeah, like obviously they played him off to be a goof, but they didn't do this with Eric Andre. Like they put him in some peril, and they really didn't let him play that, which I'm really glad about. So
yeah, that's actually pretty impressive, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think that Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, who played as the Posies, who are these perfect neighbors. When John Legend, who's this amazing singer, and Chrissy Teigen, who is incredible with various things. She's known for being a model, and she's known for her TV show, and she's known for her cookbook. So you have these two together, and they have really good chemistry for the short amount of time that they were in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they had to be shown off as perfect, and then it was up to the Mitchells to for some reason reason emulate them, and then that turns pear shaped, and it's kind of like, well, they need to learn that they don't need to be like that type of perfect, so that was a great message also to put in there as well, like, give them something to compare to, and then realize they don't have to be compared to that. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So basically, Eric and Deborah Block 5000 tell the Mitchells that in order for them to, stop PAL, they have to go all the way to Colorado and upload the kill code to PAL, and they have to make this massive trip. And oh my gosh, when they finally made it over to the mall, and everything just starts coming to life and taking over, it is unbelievable. You have like all of these appliances. You have a giant Furby, and it's
Oh
about
god,
to attack.
the Furby the Furby creeped me out. I'll be honest with you
Oh
about
yeah.
that. Like I can't believe they still make those things. Like,
They still do, and
uh,
it's still popular.
oh god,
Yeah.
what's wrong with humanity? Seriously, kill these
Yeah,
things
I
off.
never
Don't.
got into Furbies. Those
I,
things were super freaky
I
to
know. I
me.
never got into them myself. Well, on top of that, like the original ones were super defective. Like they used to get like greasy and like they used to go wrong and all sorts of stuff. Like I never went near them because I realized how awful they were. So.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was a teenager, and I remember when Furbies used to be on the commercials, and I would like pass through Furby toys. It's like, here's the thing, I love owls. I am a huge owl fan. So when I saw these kind of Furbies and they have like the big eyes and the talking, it's like that freaked me out. And so I thought that those kind of like died out around the 2000s, but no,
No,
apparently
they're
nostalgia
still
brought them
here.
back.
For some strange, some god awful reason, they're still here.
Yeah, they're still here, and the reason why is because there was like a massive boom for Furby around like the 2010s when, hey, we're nostalgic for Furbies, let's bring them back, and
Those
then
things
they
should have
did.
died out with Tiger Electronic games.
Oh
Seriously.
yeah, the what was it, like the quarter bit, the Risk game?
Yeah, the Risk game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you what, given all the things that we're seeing with how PAL took over like all these smart devices, it kind of makes me feel like I want a Tiger handheld now, to be honest with you. So,
Oh my gosh. So
just,
you can play Double Dragon and Batman.
yeah, at least it's not going to take over the world.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
Nope. Anyway, so it turns out that when they tried to upload the kill code, it didn't exactly work out very well because they weren't able to do it in time. And so you have this really heartbreaking scene in which, when eventually, like, they're being captured, and you only have like Katie, Aaron, and Monchi left. And you have Rick, who's just trapped up there when he sees Mark. And he's talking to him about like, I shouldn't have caused all this. It's my fault. And, then we have like this one scene in which, Rick was watching one of Katie's videos, and he was saying like, wow, I know about that video. That's really good. Who did that? And he's like, oh, my daughter did that. And he's like, wow, really? She's really talented. And so they come up with the idea of uploading Katie's video into the PAL system so that it'll malfunction. And you have Katie, Aaron, and Monchi in the car trying to rescue Linda and Rick, who are trapped up there with the other humans. And it's actually a really great scene. Once again, going into a Goofy movie in which when Max learned how to do the perfect cast to save Goofy while he's falling down the waterfall, Katie learned how to floor it and how to drive the car just so that they can be able to go where the humans are, which is actually like great, foreshadowing, because we see Rick trying to teach Katie how to drive the car, but Katie's not really paying attention. Same thing with Goofy trying to teach Max how to do the perfect cast, where he's not really impressed with it. So yeah, it all comes back full circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, I really like how all the story elements, when they get introduced at the very beginning of the movie, they actually tie them all up at the very end, which I think is really good. Like, whether it's, Mark Bowman, realizing that, what he's done, and that he's, finding out the error of his ways in regards to how he's treated PAL and how he's basically treated his tech company. And then, with the relationship between, Katie and Rick in this, and various other characters also get, shoe-ins in this as well, like, and yeah, also, I just think it all comes together pretty well, towards the end. Like, we get a really good first act of it all, for first, being introduced, and then after that, like, it all comes together. It all flows very well in the second act, and then finally we get to this final third, and it all just comes together really well. So.
It does, especially when we see Katie watching the old, recordings of Rick's camera, where you got to see like them together, and you got to see when Katie was a child and Rick was living in the cabin with Linda, and you got to see basically another clip where Katie sees that they had to give away the cabin and they had to move over to another place because they were going to take care of Katie and they needed to, go away where Katie can be able to have a better life. And, we see Rick devastated with it because, he built that cabin with his two hands. He worked really hard on it. He lived a really happy life over there. But in order for Rick to have an opportunity to give Katie a normal life, he needed to give up something that he really loved, which was that cabin and living in the countryside.
Yeah, and you know what, that is a really, that's really great. Arcing to the reason why she had that ornament to begin with, because it was part of that cabin that and it was to remind her of like where she came from, pretty much. And
Exactly.
so, yeah.
That was why Rick gave Katie the carving of the moose, because that was from the cabin right before they left. And she in the film we saw that Katie was really gravitated to it, and then Rick said, "Okay, you can keep it." And so she's had a hold of it ever since. And we even saw like throughout the beginning of the film when she was really angry with Rick that she actually threw it away in the trash. So that must have been really devastated for Rick when he finally found it.
Yeah, like it must be very hard for for Rick, because obviously like we now learn that that's basically his origin story, pretty much, like where basically everyone came from, and what happened. So it really, I really like this, where you have something that is quite impactful to begin with, but then you don't realize how really impactful it is until you get later into the movie. It always keeps you watching, and it's great storytelling as well. Like the fact that Rick has this different past from previously, and even though he has this fractious relationship with his daughter now, he's still willing to do anything to make sure that she succeeds, including like giving up his very prized possession that was his own house.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's great stuff. This is great stuff. Like this is what you do to create drama and angst amongst in family stories. And I really wish that a lot of other movies did this. I'm looking at you, RV. But like Mitchell vs. the Machines. This is the family movie that gets most of the elements right, and so like anyone who like wants should be looking at like doing like movies about family drama and things like that. They should really look at Mitchell vs. the Machines as like a starting point. Seriously.
Absolutely, yeah. And I really like how the movie concludes in the final act, in which when Pal finally meets up with Katie, and then she says, "Oh, I've been looking at you, Mitchells. You guys are like a really awkward, imperfect family." And then she said, "Give me one reason why I should keep humanity here, and I should not just like throw them away." And Katie says that humanity is always learning. Humanity is flawed. Humanity always learns, and though they're connected, I mean, without humanity, that we can't be able to grow our world the way it is. And she says that with her family specifically, that no matter how different they are, they're always going to be together as a family. And Pal just doesn't understand this. It's like, this is really illogical. This is not perfect. I'm going to get rid of you. And then we finally had this great moment in which when Eric and Deborah were able to have Rick use the computer to upload the home video of Katie, which again reminds me of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, in which we have Tim, who is Flint's father. He was the one who was able to upload the kill code over to Flint after he loses the USB drive. And he knew nothing about computers, but he was the one who kind of helped save the day. So it's kind of like very similar in which like Rick, even though he knew nothing about computers, he was able to help save the day by uploading Katie's video over to Pal's system, and then everything was like all jumbled up, and then finally we have Katie throwing Pal into a glass of water, and then everything was destroyed, and humanity is saved once again.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so then basically we get to the final act of the movie, and that is that they finally drop off Katie over at college, and then basically that's the not the final goodbye, but basically it's the the end of an era, I guess you could say, for the Mitchells. So
Yeah. Exactly. So, they finally dropped Katie off to college, and, Katie says goodbye to her family, and then she goes off and she does what she loves best, and she promises that she'll come and visit. And, then we have like the final act in which when we see, Katie joining them with Eric and Deborah Bott to Washington, D.C., so that they can get the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor for saving humanity from an evil robot. So I thought that that was actually a pretty nice way to end things
I was
off.
going to say, like, I thought that, there should be some kind of, like, I'm pretty sure, like, the most of America, probably most of the world, probably be very grateful for the fact that they've actually done this. Like, it's, I was going to say, like, maybe I might be being a bit unfair here, but I think it's way better than how, Home handled this, about that DreamWorks movie where, it's like, oh, well, like, the humans now have got their world back, so, like, but, the as far as I'm aware, the character that that the main character in that didn't really like get any kind of like world payoff or anything like that. I don't think so. Like
Right.
yeah, but in this it's kind of like yeah, saving the world's kind of a big deal, so we're going to reward you for it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I have to say that the another thing that we need to praise for this movie is the animation. Taking pages from Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse, in which they were able to have like the 2D, 3D hybrid with the mixture of colors and details with the designs and the backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. It works really well here with showcasing the humor and the quirkiness of the animation. It really works well here.
Yeah, it does, and like it's so expressionate as well. Like, and also, like when you feel like you're in a warm moment with his family, it does feel that this warmth is, introduced into there. When you're in like, the actual, system itself of PAL, like, it feels cold and it feels like it feels robotic and it feels like, it feels like the Matrix and it feels like, Tron. And you can see those influences in there as well. Like the way that this movie is animated, and the way that the backgrounds and everything like that are drawn. Like it's fantastic to watch. It's if you even if you just you're not really getting invested into the story, like you really got to get invested into the visuals. Seriously. So.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of animation studios are praising and paying attention to the animation style that Sony's doing. I mean, so much so that DreamWorks is doing it. We saw this with The Bad Guys, and now they're going to do it for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. So, yeah, they're paying attention to this.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be too surprised if like other movie places start turning around saying Sony's got it locked out. Excuse me. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if other movie studios start paying attention to what Mitchell's vs. the Machines are doing, paying attention to what Netflix are doing, and what Sony Pictures are doing, and saying, oh hey, they got a really stylish, cool art style here, and they can even tell a warm story around it. Like let's do that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a massive game changer.
This is
What
something you think we'd be talking about with Pixar, or even DreamWorks, let alone Sony or Netflix. It's quite amazing, actually, given the fact that we've got someone wanting to break ground in this way.
Exactly, yeah. So Spider-Man Entered the Spider-Verse and Mitchell's vs. the Machines really broke ground for their animation style. It's like this is going to probably be like the animation style that everybody's going to be trying to copy off of in the 2020s decade.
Yep. And unfortunately, some of the knockoff studios will probably not see it for another 20, 30 years.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. Anyway, so yeah, overall, this was a great movie.
Go.
Definitely one of the best animated movies I've seen over the past couple of years.
My final thoughts are go see it. Like, seriously, if you've not seen Mitchell's vs. the Machine yet, what are you doing? Go watch that movie, seriously. Like, we've put it off for such the longest time, and I feel really bad for doing it, because, mind you, I gave up on Netflix a long time ago, so, like, it's unfortunately, it's one of those where, I have to kind of, like, find another place to watch it, but seriously, if you've got a Netflix account, and if you're still listening to this and not watching Mitchell's vs. the Machine yet, what are you doing? Go watch it, seriously. Like,
Yeah, the only way that Aaron and I were able to watch it was we had to watch it on our flight over to see each other.
Yeah, actually, that was quite hilarious. Actually, so the way we saw this movie is that it was available on. Actually, there's another place. If you don't have a Netflix account, if you pay enough money and you want to go on a holiday to America or go on a holiday to England, then you can watch it on a Virgin Atlantic flight as you go over. So that's another place you can watch it too if you can bother to part that much money and also spend a week in America or in England. So
Yeah, there you go.
there you go.
Yeah, so if you have like over $1,000 to spend going over to England or going to America, then go watch Mitchell's versus the Machines while you're flying over in Virgin Atlantic.
Hmm.
Either that or just watch it on Netflix, or you can buy it on DVD and Blu-ray. That's also another option too.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I know that this took a long time for me to finally sit down and talk about Mitchell's versus the Machines, especially since I said I wanted to talk about it last year, but I hope that you enjoyed our discussion of it. And don't worry, we will discuss about the other movies that will be coming down on the line. We'll still go over Candace Against the Universe and Bob's Burgers, and we'll go over to Across the Spider-Verse. So we'll get to those in due time.
Cool.
All right, then. So, Aaron, do you have anything to plug and promote right before we go?
If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Arun Mehta Show. That's Alpha Romeo Uniform November, Mike Echo Hotel Tango Alpha, Sierra Hotel Oscar Whiskey. So that's Arun Mehta Show. And and also I do apologise if I've not been answering questions on Tumblr. If you have submitted a question to Tumblr, I will try and get to it eventually. And in regards to the return of the Arun Mehta Show, I mean, like, it's just an ongoing thing that I'm currently working on at the moment. So please stay tuned, and I'll let you know what's up.
All right, then. So if you want to check my stuff out, you can check it out on oldschoollane.net, youtube.com/oldschoollane, facebook.com/oldschoollane. I'm on Twitter at Patty_B_Miranda. You can check out the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, Amazon Music, Audible.com, many places. New episodes of the podcast will go there first, and then they'll go up on a few days on YouTube. So thank you so much for listening, everyone. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of Mitchell's vs. the Machines. What were your favorite characters? What was your favorite moment? What did you think of the story? What did you think of the animation style? Do you want to see a Mitchell's vs. the Machines 2? Or do you want to be able to see an animated series based off of Mitchell's vs. the Machines? Let us know. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. Hope to see you around soon, and take care.
Bye, everybody.